Hey there, traders. We're back for another daily recap. This is for Wednesday, April 9, 2025. You notice the time, it's almost 1 a.m., April 10. So pretty late in getting this out, but I just want to do it now. So I won't have two recaps in one later on. So a massive bullish day today, 555 points, somewhere in that neighborhood, closed right at the highs. So we can make some observations about this. First, personally, I was hoping they'd come down to this zone before the bulls got in front of things and drove price up. Secondly, I was not involved in the market today, so missed any kind of opportunities. There was at least one clue that I identified in the morning that was sent out in the game plan, which we'll look at shortly, that could have spurred some buying. And perhaps some of you were able to ride this thing up on Wednesday. So think about what's happening. Price is coming down, acting more or less normal, hit some support. Remember the 561 to 563.65? That's the last zone we had here that they spent some time around. It could have bounced from, but they didn't. And after the close on Wednesday last week, the tariff speech that President Trump gave sent price plummeting. And with all this whipsawing back and forth, we had the tariff pause news come out on Wednesday, pushed price back up. So where they closed on Wednesday is pretty much in the same general downtrend. If you were to visualize price coming down, this is kind of where they'd be if they were to continue this trajectory. So with that in mind, I'm going to zoom out and do a few things here. If I were to draw a trend line from the all-time highs to the next pivot high, which is here, just to say, okay, they're kind of could be constrained in this area. And I'll draw another one to where they close today. So if we can get in, maybe refine this a little bit more on an hourly chart. Here is the high. Here's the first pivot high, and then the high today on the hourly chart was there. And so why is this significant? Well, if we zoom in even closer on a 10-minute chart, it's obvious that the upper trend line is important because you can see that on the larger time frames. This is where this trend line was made. 2 points create a line. And price reacted off this trend line at this point in time, bounced away and haven't been back since. But the other trend line, just, we're looking at a 10-minute chart here, so let's consider what's happening. Price was below this trend line until here. Keep in mind, this trend line was made by connecting today's high with that upper pivot. And now we can observe that it was significant in the past. So it probably will be significant in the future. It is right now. This is what I'm trying to show. Price was below this at one point, whatever day this was, March 24. They got up to this lower trend line and they were constrained within this. It was important several times until they got below it. And then the next time they visited it, pulled down. Like, these are pretty big moves here. It was around 559, maybe 560 when they hit it here, pulled all the way down to 554. It's a lot of points. Got above it, spent some time around this trend line before they went up here. We talked about that already. This is after the close last Wednesday, that 4 o'clock speech, which pushed price below, and they fell. We know what happened. And now they're back up to here. It would not be surprising if they continue to respect this trend line. Sure enough, they are. This is the after-hour session so far. And these are big moves. It might not look like much here, but they hit this thing right before the close. They've hit it a couple times since. What's the move here from in the after hours? Just 5:20 p.m. or so. Hour and a half after the market closes, they hit it again, pull back, 20 points or so, 546-ish, down to 544. Yeah, at least 20 points. So the point is, depending on what the futures are going to do tonight, they've got to get above that trend line. Let's go back to an hourly chart and go back to the regular session. Then they've got more work to get through the upper one, but before they even get there, there will likely be some overhead resistance. There's just a couple observations based on where they closed. Closes are always very important. And while I'm at it, let's see. Why don't we do a Fibonacci retracement levels? Same high to the low they made. They're back up right in the 50% retracement. And so think about what's above here. Once again, 561 to 563.65 is a zone. A lot of things they've got to get through if the bulls are going to recover this. This could just be a retracement. They're going to pull back down. A lot of times it's not too surprising to see some type of retracement on a big reversal candle like this that would come down. I mean, they could come down halfway. They could come down all the way down here or so, lose a lot more points before they're able to break through the high and continue higher. It's not over yet probably. And the other thing is the timing aspect of them being down here Friday or Monday perhaps still isn't off the table. Seems kind of crazy for them to do that, but anything can happen. And just like the last couple of days, my stance for Wednesday was it would make sense not to get involved in the market. I certainly didn't. I recorded the entire day, but I walked away and did other things. I have the entire day recorded just for record. Here are the levels. It was essentially several zones. I had 4 zones and then one level at the bottom. You can read through the notes, the game plan. And you can see that it was a let's sit this one out again, at least for myself. So one thing to pay attention to here, between 502.22 and 496.48, that was one of the zones that I saw in the morning that the bulls would have to get above that price to go higher. And this is what the chart looked like before the market opened. Here's all the zones. And here's what the chart looks like now, at least as of the close on Wednesday. So here's that zone, 502.22 to 496.48, a big zone, but they spent a lot of time in this until 120 or so. And then news came out that pushed price up. They had so much momentum that when they hit this next zone, they got above it and stalled out a little bit, but they were clearly strong at this point. The first hourly close was here. This is 130 right here. So 130, they were in the middle of the zone after pushing up pretty hard. So what I'm asking is, knowing in the morning, at least from my perspective, that if they could get above this zone, then price could go higher. Would you have jumped on board and gone long at this point? You had another maybe 200 points till the end of the day. I'm not saying it would have been easy to trade. Certainly today would not have been easy to play by the rules that I typically trade by, because we're just looking for small scalp trades, like little base hits of 4 points, 4 to 6 points or so. And it would have worked in some cases. You would have had at least 2 trades here as they bounced off the extremes of this zone inside. And without that news release, it's likely it would have continued and got slightly above it or slightly below it. This is another kind of black swan thing happening. Out of the blue, something shows up, and it makes trading these levels the typical way a little more difficult. So it's kind of good to sit this one out today, possibly 2 base hits down here. After 9:45, they were in between the 2 extremes of this zone. They bounced there, they bounced there. Trade on the long side, trade on the short side. Not going to do anything until they get up to the next level. They might have bounced down 40. Let's see. It would have hit 521.88. It came down to 520.59. Well, it doesn't look like much there. If you were fast enough, you could have pulled a few points, but bulls were in control at this point. So hitting the top of this zone at 527.09, if you went short there, you would have been out of the money so bad, you would have probably jumped out at a max loss limit somewhere. Although they did come down eventually, but could you have withstood that? I'm not sure most people could have. 527.09 up to 533, 60 points before they pulled back. Hard to fight that kind of momentum. But anyway, we can at least see what price did with our levels. They were important, but probably difficult to trade with the type of volatility on hand. At the very end of the day, within a few minutes of the close, they hit 545.77 and a nice little reaction. We already talked about what they're doing with that area that they're at now, 50% retracement, trend line, so forth and so on. They closed at an important area. I meant to mention this before, but it should be obvious now that the recording that I made of the entire day should have been playing the whole time over in this general area. Just to save time, no trades taken, just a record of price action as they progressed through time and reacted at our levels today. So this is what our tracking logs look like, playing by the rules. The best trades on Wednesday, like the last 2 days, would have been no trades, unless you were able to pick a bottom and ride the thing up, or wait till they got above that zone and jump on board. That would be for the more adventurous trader, anyone who is willing to take that kind of risk. But in my experience, I found that if I'm willing to sit back and just watch kind of out of the ordinary days just do their thing and be a spectator and not get involved, it's better to not make money at all than to risk losing money, because more often than not, you get whipped around and will lose money. That's been my experience. Of course, I say that, but I took a couple chances the last couple of days and they paid off, but not advocating what I did today, no trades at all. So anyway, this is what the tracking logs look like as of today. So that's a wrap for Wednesday. And as you know, there will be new levels tomorrow morning, or this morning, currently a quarter after 1 a.m. Eastern, and a game plan with the best information that I'll have available. It'll be interesting to see what the futures do in the overnight session. Thanks for watching. Hope you found some value in this. I will talk to you again soon. Have a great day.